What's up guys? Today I'm going to share the story of how I learned to lead climb through doing my own research, teaching myself, and with the help of some more experienced lead climbing friends. Different from top roping, lead climbing has a lot more risk because when you top rope, you basically don't fall at all or just a couple inches, but when you're leading, you can basically fall double the length of the rope from your last protection and more. To lead climb in any gym, usually in the US, you have to pass a lead climbing test which assesses if you have the basic skills and knowledge to not hurt yourself on the wall. Oftentimes, people get this knowledge from a class offered by the gym at various points of the month. I opted to test out of lead without taking a class, which is due to a couple of factors. So in this video, I'm going to go over the rationale for why I chose not to take a formal lead class commonly offered at gyms. I'm going to show how I gained more skills and confidence in lead climbing in general. At the end, I'm going to show actual footage from lead tests that I've done, going over the critiques that I've received from the instructor. Those are actually tips and tricks for lead belaying that I did not learn from the many lead belaying videos that I've watched on the internet. So I think that's also very helpful. Before I go further, I have to give a disclaimer. The purpose of this video is simply to share the story of how I learned to lead climb without taking a class, but it's not to discourage you from taking these classes. In fact, I actually encourage you to seek qualified instruction whenever possible, because climbing safety is your responsibility. Back to the video. So there were three main reasons why I didn't want to take the class. Number one was that lead climbing classes are obviously very costly. Depending on which gyms you go to, it could range between $65 to even $150. At Touchstone, they do have really good gyms, but $150 for a lead climbing class is basically stealing. I could basically buy 2 pairs of shoes or 1 pair of really good climbing shoes with that kind of money. So I did not want to do that. Secondly, the availability of lead climbing classes are very, very limited. I would search up any class and they would be out or they would be fully booked until the next month. I wanted to do it with my partner, but because there's just so much planning that goes into it and like the lack of availability, I chose not to go. And then lastly, it was just something in the back of my head that old school climbers, they didn't go through this process. They didn't go through a lead climbing class when all they climbed was actually outdoor rock and not in a gym. With so many resources online of how to lead climb, how to lead belay, this was just like the last push where I was just like, okay, I'm just gonna learn how to lead climb by myself. So with that kind of logic, I set out to learn how to lead. I wasn't ready to belay yet, so I just went with someone who knew how to belay and I just lead climbed. I watched a couple of lead climbing videos from REI, especially the one where it talks about lead falling, and I went outdoors. But that's when I ran into my first big roadblock, and it's almost immediate. And you guessed it, it was the fear of falling. When I was up there on the rock, I remember feeling so much fear than I would imagine it feeling. I had a prediction that I was going to be scared, so I chose a 5-7 climb. But because it was a 5-7, there were so many ledges and jugs that I imagined if I fell 5 to 10 feet, I would land on a ledge or a jug and just like hook myself or hurt myself, sprain an ankle, break a heel bone or something. So I was kind of paralyzed in fear. Like I was scared shitless throughout. Many moves that I confidently did on top rope on that route before suddenly felt super, super insecure. And I just imagined myself falling. I tried to record it as my first lead, but honestly, I was kind of traumatized and I went home and I deleted all of the footage from that. So 2 months passed and I went on a trip to Holcomb Valley with my friends. And because I was so scared, I downgraded even further. Even though I had the ability to climb 5'11 in the gym, I did a 5'3 leading at Holcomb. And I still remember feeling very clenched and anxious because that route, it was kind of like low angle. Even if I fell, I probably would have cheese grated my stomach or like fell on a ledge or something. It wasn't good. Like I chose the worst climbs to do my first lead in, and I'll show you why. This was one of the first concepts that I learned from these experiences actually. Different from top roping, leading on easy routes doesn't mean it's safer. Because easy routes offer a lot of jugs and ledges for you to easily climb up, you can often fall on them and then get snagged and hurt. So this wasn't something I rationalized until I saw a forum post about it. It was not until a little later that I tried to attempt a 5'11B on an outdoors trip with some very, very experienced lead climbing friends. I could have top roped it, but it's actually safer to lead it due to how overhung the route was. This video doesn't do it justice, but it was very overhung. Because I was being belayed by someone who I trusted a lot, this was actually where I took my first lead fall. Also because of how overhung it was, every single fall I took, I fell into thin air. The route was really clean and all the falls were really clean. So with the falls, I started small and then I started to take bigger and bigger falls. And I realized that the falls were not as bad. At the end of that climb, my belayer, he encouraged me to take a really big fall. Well, it's not that big, but it's a fall where I don't clip the top of the anchor and I fall. And it simulates the big fall you have to take for a lead climbing test. So the fall was one of the biggest ones I've ever taken, and I definitely felt that my stomach went up my chest, but it was a climb that like relit my fire to go lead climb again. Some of the things that I learned from this trip that really helped was number one, wear a helmet when you learn how to lead climb because it gives you more confidence to fall. I think the first time I led on that very sketchy route, I wasn't wearing a helmet, which like made me petrified. Like, what if I fall, flip upside down, and smash my head against the rock? Like, wear a helmet, it will give you a little bit more confidence. Number two is that there were many times I backstepped, even with prior knowledge, knowing what backstepping was.
See that bolt? Don't skip it. Watch your leg. You're gonna flip it. Watch your leg. Don't do that. Watch your leg.
If the rope does get behind your leg, take the time to reset or step around and get it in front of you. An easy way to tell if the rope is in a good position is to make sure it's running over the top of your toes.
Even though I had it in my knowledge, I didn't have a lot of opportunity to put it into practice. So a simple solution to this is actually when you're top roping at the gym or top roping outdoors, mock lead. So tie another line that's not attached to a belayer. Mock leading it also allows you to practice clipping, which will give you more pump depending on how efficient you are, and it helps you train for leading. And the third thing that I learned, which was I need to clip better. There are many times where I felt like I pumped myself out just because I took way too long to clip. I was a V4, V5 climber at the time. 5'11" should have felt pretty easy, but just the act of like hanging on one arm, using the other arm to clip, it just pumped my arms out. My friend actually said one thing that really stuck out to me, which was whenever you watch a pro climber clip, it's instantaneous, like it's like magic. So when I went home, I watched a bunch of videos about clipping. No video really comprehensively teaches clipping because there's such a variety in technique, but here are 3 videos that really helped, and I'll just link them in the bottom for you to watch. I actually set up like one quick draw on the top of my bed, and I would practice clipping on it. When it comes to clipping, having a lot of different orientation and scenarios for clipping and practicing that, making everything smooth, it will really help you when it comes to lead climbing. After working on these for a while, most of which were mainly lead climber skills, I also needed to learn more about lead belaying. So I watched some videos that really helped with learning how to lead belay, but many of them do not point out small but important details with lead belaying, which I learned after being critiqued by certified instructors who conducted my lead test in the gym. These were some of the helpful videos: the REI lead belaying video, Dale Remsberg dynamic belay video, and the video by Petzl Grigri. So then came a time when I met someone who was down to take the lead climb test with me, and it was Nikki, my good friend. So one thing when you're deciding on lead testing, it's always helpful to call the gym ahead of time because not all gym staff are certified to test you out of lead. This can be very inconvenient for you to show up to the gym and no one on shift that day can give you the lead test. Just something to keep in mind. So here's the lead test. General formatting: person 1 climbs up a route, usually 5'9 to 5'10B, slightly overhung because they want you to have like a cleanish fall. And you climb up to a point right here. It's where this square is that circles the top jug. And you take an unannounced fall and lower. The person or people conducting the test will check if you skip clips, back step, Z-clip, or do other weird stuff that you're not supposed to do. Usually backstepping won't result in an automatic failure, but other stuff listed will. If you're the climber and you fall anytime other than when you're supposed to take the fall, then it will be an automatic fail. Person 2 is on the ground, they belay. They're assessed on having the right amount of slack and paying attention throughout the climb. They're also assessed of how safe they're handling the belay device. There's also almost always one staff that backs up the rope in case you somehow fail the belay. And after that, both persons switch. Both need to pass the climber and belay portions to be certified. In total, I've participated in 3 lead climb tests. And the first time, I completed my climb and I took the required fall. But my climbing partner, Nikki, she fell mid-climb for her portion, so I was left with a lead climber only certification for completing the climbing portion, and Nikki was given the lead climb belay only certification for completing the belay portion. Even though I pretty much finished the whole test, the whole belay portion was not able to be completed due to the fall to certify me for the whole lead cert. But here's some things that I learned from my first lead test. Usually the most important part during the belay test is during the first 3 clips where your climber can potentially fall and touch the ground. So that's usually where the staff pays the most attention during the test. For me, I didn't know that once the person clips in, it turns into a top rope situation most of the time. So for the first and second bolts for Nikki, since the rope runs up to the quick draw, it puts her in a top rope position where I need to not have the soft J that is usually associated with lead climbing belaying. Rather, I should just pull out all the slack and put her on top rope to give her the extra security, especially since she is at the bottom of the climb. Especially for here, it's like a really good example. On the third clip, she clips above her head, so I do need to make sure that she is on quote-unquote top rope, where I pull in the slack after she clips, because if I did kept the soft J after she clipped third bolt, if she fell at that moment, she would have fallen more than she had to and potentially hit the ground. So yeah, anytime when they clip above their head, or even like you see the rope running from their harness upwards through a draw and downwards, that's the opportunity to put them on top rope instead of feeding out slack. So the next week, we did come back to take the test again, and this time we just needed to complete the things that we missed. So for Nikki, she needed to pass the climb portion, I just needed to pass the belay portion. But Nikki fell at the same spot again, so we didn't make any progress for that test. However, there was one critique that I received for the belay portion again that was pretty helpful. If you notice in this replay, for this round of the lead test, Nikki chose to clip the first bolt as the one on the left instead of the one on the right that she did in the previous climb. And because of that, I should have shifted my standing position by standing under her and to the left side of her. Because I chose to stand on the right side, the rope goes under her and it causes her to essentially backstep. So if she were to have fallen at this point, she may have been able to flip over. I think it's like really apparent here how the rope is under her, so if she were to fall, her right foot would have probably caught on the rope. And it would have been mitigated if I were to just stand like further into the cave and to the left of her, and there would be like open space, no rope under her. And after that, I actually thought that my belaying got a lot better since the first time that I belayed her for the test. And if she were to have finished the climb, we highly likely would have been certified for lead that day. But it can wait. On my third test, I was with my friend Derek. Me and Derek have been climbing forever, like when I started climbing, and we lead climb outdoors all the time. So we were very comfortable with belaying each other, and we passed like with flying colors. There was one critique that the instructor did tell me, which was that I was standing a little too far from the wall. So you want to stay around 6 to 8 feet from the wall, and you never want to be in the fall zone in case the climber on top falls within the first or second draws or third draw. So you want to be relatively close to the wall without being in the fall zone where they can fall on you. So usually like you step a couple steps to the left or a couple steps to the right of the first quick draw. But yeah, that's basically my whole journey of learning how to lead climb. I hope this video was helpful. These belay tips that I mentioned near the end of the video, definitely keep them in mind when you're preparing for your lead climbing test. And keep in mind that even if you end up failing your lead climbing test, just stay positive and just come back another time to test out. Some instructors can be hard, some instructors can be easy, and if like you make a small mistake, they'll let you pass. Some will fail you just for like a small thing, so just keep trying and eventually you'll get there. So yeah, get out there and good luck. If you like this video, you can help me grow this channel by commenting, and subscribe. So yeah, catch you in the next video.